Hello and welcome back to the Write Your Path podcast. My name is Lolly Spindler. I'm a writer, editor, book doula, and liberation coach. And today on the pod, I am going to share my experience with Vipassana, which is a style, a technique of meditation. And it's also the commonly used term to describe the 10-day silent meditation retreats where this style of meditation is taught. So I had heard about Vipassana for years, ever since I started meditating, even maybe before actually. I started meditating about 4 years ago now. I was meant to go to a yoga class, what I thought was a yoga class, on my FitPass app, which is like ClassPass in the US. And I went to At My Yoga Studio, which if you've ever listened to this podcast, you've definitely heard me mention before, for what I thought was a yoga class. And I, rolled out my mat, was stretching. And then my now meditation teacher, Ramon, came out and was like, "This is a meditation class." And I was like, great. I had really wanted to get my workout in for the day, so I was disappointed. But I was like, you know what? I'm already here. I'm literally already in the room. Let's fucking do it. After that hour-long meditation session, I was like surprised by how much I liked it. And because I tried meditating before and I couldn't really get into it. And Ramon and Anna, who's the other owner of Atma, were like, you know what, we're doing our first 50-hour formación, like course on meditation, and we have 2 spots left. And I was like, ugh, God damn it. Like, that's why I'm here. I am supposed to do this 50-hour group meditation course. So I did. And since then, if you've listened to the podcast, I sing mantras and I'm really into bhakti yoga. And I did my yoga teacher training. And so like ever since this 50-hour meditation group, I have really committed to the yogic lifestyle and different yogic practices. And although I'm not the best meditator, I hope Ramon doesn't listen to this episode, I still keep up with it, even though I don't do it as much as I should. Anyways, so I have been meditating for the past 4 years. And so Vipassana had come up into my world a few times. And I was always curious and intrigued, but it's a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And I was like, you know what, with this 50-hour meditation course I'd done, like we did 24 hours in silence. And I loved it. But I was like, going from 24 hours to 10 days is like a big leap. Like maybe I could do like 3 days and like work my way up to it. Well, no, because Vipassana only offers 10-day courses, 10-day retreats to new students. So it's that or nothing. Like once you've done a retreat, then you could do like a 3-day or a 20-day or a 30-day or a 60-day. But if you're a new student, if it's your first time, you have to do the 10-day. So last year in 2025, I had received some signs from the universe that this year, 2026, was the year I would do my Vipassana. I had some friends do it, and then there was like a free books box randomly on the street, and guess what book was in it? Vipassana. And I was like, God damn it. Okay, universe. Like, I keep seeing you. You want me to do this thing. Okay, I'm going to do it in 2026. So at the beginning of the year, I looked up when the retreats were and when the 10-day retreats for new students were happening. And I landed on the end of June, early July. Now, as a huge football fan, I did not have the dates for the World Cup on my calendar yet. So yeah, this wasn't the best timing, but this was like a thing I had to do this year. So, it had the priority. So from June 24th to July 4th, I was in Valle de Bravo, which is about 2 hours outside of Mexico City, at Dama Macaranda, which is the name of the Vipassana Center in Valle de Bravo. And before this, I when we applied, it was like 2 months before. So like April, We had to get up at 4 a.m. Like you have to apply at 4 a.m. on the dot if you're a new student, especially a woman, because the female spots fill up really fast. And in retrospect, I was like, oh, they're training you with that 4 a.m. wake up time because that's the time you wake up every morning at this 10-day retreat. So on April 24th, I got up at 3:50 a.m. and I registered and went back to sleep. When I got up again, I got the news that I'd been accepted. And so I started the mental preparations, right? I knew this was going to be pretty rigorous. And so I was just very intentional about, just caring for myself, my body, my mind, and my energy before I did this thing. So I get there on June 24th. Thankfully, I got a ride from, it turns out, a woman who actually lives at the center. She told me how it works if you're living at the center is you serve 2 retreats and then you can sit a retreat. So everybody who's working at the center, they're not being paid. They're all volunteers. So the people making the food, like organizing everything, the coordinator for men and women, they're all volunteers, even the teachers. Nobody's paid. They're all just giving their time freely. So this girl would serve, she would volunteer for two retreats, and then she would sit for one. And so everyone else in the car, all first timers. And so we really had no idea what to expect. You literally get there, and the first thing you do is you fill out like a little form that basically asks, are you on any medication? Is there any psychiatric or psychological needs that you have? Any history of addiction? They basically ask for like a biography of you and why you're there, basically. And then after you fill this out, you turn it in, and then you turn in your cell phone. And that's it. You are now in. They give you your room assignment. Most of the rooms in the center I went to were single occupancy, except maybe 5 or 6 that had 3 beds. So it was either 1 or 3. And let me tell you, these 3 bedrooms are really crammed. And guess where yours truly ended up? Yep. In a 3-bedder and right across from the bathrooms. So that was fun for this light ass sleeper right here. I heard absolutely everything because guess what? It's a silent retreat. So you literally hear everything. Thankfully, I got to chat with my 2 roommates a little bit before we went into silent mode. So they were really lovely ladies. I got really lucky. And then at the end of the day, like right after, I think we ate around 5 or 6. And then after that, we went into the meditation hall. And as we walked into the meditation hall, that was it. We were silent from then on out. And so basically how Vipassana works is the night before is when you get instructions for the following day's meditation. So days 1 through 4 are basically all Anapana meditation, which is basically focusing on your respiration. And then the end of day 4, you get the instructions for the Vipassana technique of meditation. And then you do that for the rest of the retreat until the very last day, when they teach you basically like a metta meditation, which is very similar to Vipassana, but it's all about sharing love and compassion and goodwill. But I'll get into each one of these separately. So Anapana meditation is what we started with. And honestly, after day 1 or 2, I was like, what the fuck is this? What am I doing? Because all you do in Anapana first day is you're just noticing how your breath goes in and out of your nose. Second day, you notice the sensation of the air on your nostrils and below your nostrils. And then day 3, you're allowed to feel sensation on your upper lip. And then all of day 4 is from like the bridge of your nose down to like your upper lip, like that triangle. Then you're allowed to feel sensation in that area. And girl, I thought I was losing my mind because I was like, I come from a very different style of meditation where we're not focusing on the body. We're trying to silence the mind, just come to a place of stillness in the mind. I think stillness is a better word for it. And here I was using the mind to focus on the body. And so the first 3 days, I was like having a philosophical debate in my own head because I couldn't really talk to anyone. And I was like, this isn't fucking meditation. What is this? And so, I mean, to be fair, you can ask questions to the teachers. There's normally one teacher for the women and one teacher for the men because men and women are separated. Like you still are meditating in the same hall, but for all intents and purposes, like you have different dining rooms and residencies. And the teachers, it's kind of interesting because they're not really teaching. All of the instructions, like I said, that for all of these different meditation techniques and what you're allowed to focus on which day, are all recordings of Goenka from the 90s. So S.N. Goenka was the man from Burma, today's Myanmar, who popularized this form of meditation throughout the world, basically. His teacher told him, like, you need to take this outside of then Burma and spread it. And he did. And that's why there's centers all over the world now. So these are recordings of him from 1991, like teaching the technique. So you're listening to an audio of him sharing the technique and the teachers are just sitting there. And it was, okay, it's not funny, but like, I was like, these teachers are just here to like sneeze and cough because one was like really sick and then he got the other one really sick. And so like literally we'd be in silence and these teachers who were not actively teaching were just like sneezing and coughing throughout the whole sessions. And for me, I was just like dying laughing in my head. You know, the internal laugh that you must create when you're in silence. Anyways, so the teachers are still there. I mean, it's still beautiful, right? They're giving their time to people they don't know for 10 days, right? They're still there to answer your questions. So I went, I think like 2 days or 3 days, I went and like talked to the teacher because I had like different questions and so you can talk to the teachers and you can talk to like the staff, right? If you have a question about your residency or whatever. So it's not complete silence. Like I still talked like a few days, but it's like, hey, I need this, or like, hey, I have this question, right? Anyways, so Anapana meditation it was actually the first like 4 full days. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? This isn't meditation. And then finally, at the end of day 4 is when we got the instructions for the Vipassana style of meditation, which is instead of just becoming aware of sensations on like the nose, the triangle of the nose, you then start becoming aware of sensations all over the body. So think of it as like a body scan on drugs because the whole point, I mean, there's a scientific reason you start with Anapana and then you move to Vipassana. It's because you're training your mind to become hyper aware to the most subtle sensations on your body, which is why you are literally, like me, losing your mind, focusing on your nose. I was like, what is this nose awareness exercise for 4 days? Because you're training the mind to become aware of even the subtlest sensations on the body, which is why they pick the nose, because of all of the systems in our body, right? We have like automatic systems, like our heart pumping, that we can't just like tell our heart to stop pumping, right? It's just constantly pumping. But with our breath, we can change it. Like we will keep breathing regardless of if we're aware that we're breathing or not. But when we do become aware of the breath, we can change the rhythm of the breath. So it basically allows you to focus on a system in the body that you can control, but that will also keep functioning if you're not consciously aware of it. So in Anapana, he was basically Goenka in his recordings was like, you know, if you're having trouble feeling the sensation of your breath leaving your nostril, you can breathe a little bit harder to focus on that area and then come back to a normal breath. So there is a scientific anatomical reason for this technique. And honestly, that's what kind of was my saving grace. Like I was raised by a scientist. My father is a geologist. And so you have to appeal to my logic or I'm lost. You know, you lost me. which is one reason why meditating with Ramon, my meditation teacher here in Mexico City, was so like eye-opening to me, because he actually explained it to me in a logical way that I could was like, oh, okay, this makes sense now. Like, I don't just have to have blind faith. Like, you're actually explaining why this works and what are the benefits, right? And the science behind it. And so I did really appreciate that about this technique, is it was based on science, it was based on physics. And so that it really helped me a lot, like create that bridge to buy-in. So I understood that, but in in the actual exercising of it, it was still losing me. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it was a battle of my mind. But honestly, even though this experience was one of the hardest things I've ever done, I highly recommend it, because if you are able or have any interest in getting to know your mind at all, this is a great way to do it. Because, right, you're in silence. You have no activities, like no reading, writing, no devices, nothing, no eye contact. You have no distractions. So you are just with your mind. That's it. Like, they even say like no physical activity. Like, obviously they have a beautiful garden there, and the nature fucking saved me. And you can walk around the garden and you can stretch, but it's not like you can do a full yoga class, right? And the reason for that also scientifically is so you are sitting there with your mind. Like, you don't have any other distractions. You have to sit there and see how your mind is receiving information, is responding to information. For me, I really became aware of how my mind was always trying to make excuses, trying to place blame, trying to get me in or out of things. And so finally, right, we're at the end of day 4. We finally learned the Vipassana meditation technique, which is when we're feeling sensations like a body scan, right? Starting from the top of the head, you're feeling sensations going all the way down your body. The first couple days, it's in segments, right? So it's like the front of my body, my face, my chest, and down. The right side of my body, the left side of my body, the back of my body, right? So you're doing it in segments. And once we got to this point, I was like, okay, first of all, my mind is super stoked because this is novelty, right? Like, this is something new. Now I'm not going to be as bored. I also realized how put off I am by boredom. My mind was so bored. It was like, let's leave. Please get me out of here. And so I was like, great. I get to scan the whole body now, not just my nose. Amazing. So mind was really stoked about that. But also now being more attuned to how my mind was trying to engañarme, was trying to deceive me, was trying to get me the fuck out of there. I had to have a talk with my mind. And I said, look, I control you. You don't control me. This is 10 days of your life. That's nothing. That's a blip of a blip. You're here. You're already here. You're already 4 days in. Okay? Just sit your ass down, learn this technique, and afterwards you can decide if it's for you or not. But you're here. So stop making excuses, stop being a little whiny bitch, and just learn the technique. So day 5 and 6, I finally bought in. I finally was doing the technique, was really much more bought in, like, and aware of what I was doing with the body scan. And it just so happened that day 5 and 6, I had great meditations. A great meditation on day 5 and a great meditation on day 6. Now, I'm saying great meditation session based on the meditation technique I practice. So, not sure that translates into a great Vipassana meditation session, but I felt great afterwards. I felt like I had really got into it for 1 hour on day 5 and 1 hour on day 6. And so I was like, all right, I'm getting the hang of this. I'm feeling more attuned to what I'm supposed to be doing. Let's fucking go. And then day 7 came and it was a total wash. Like, if you're thinking like sobriety, it was a regression, 100%. And it became interesting because I was in this weird duality where I was like, okay, is this my mind just being a little whiny bitch again? Or is this my mind and body telling me it's been a week of sitting down for 10 hours a day and meditating for a week now? Like, we're tired, we need a break. And so it became a really interesting exercise to kind of parse these thoughts apart, right? And try to figure out who was talking to me. Like, is this coming from the devil on my shoulder or the angel on my shoulder, right? Very interesting reflection of the mind. And so day 7, I was like, all right, like I kept trying. It just wasn't happening. Eventually I threw in the towel. I was like, it's okay. It's one day. It's not going great, but that's okay. We have 3 more days. So day 7, I was like, all right, it's okay. We'll get back on the horse on day 8. And oh, did we get back on the horse on day 8? So day 8 is when I had my breakthrough, I will call it. So I have said before in this podcast, and I say regularly to my clients, the healing process is ongoing, right? Even if we think we've healed something, it will show back up with a different face, with a different facet. Because even though you think you've healed it, it has other things to show you and other parts of it that maybe you hadn't considered and that still need healing. This is exactly what happened to me on day 8. So, trigger warning, I will be discussing some childhood trauma right now. So if that is too triggering for you, you might want to stop the episode. So when I was little, I had, and I've talked about this too on the podcast, I would have these big emotions. And I didn't know what to do with them. Like they would take over my little body. I was like 3 or 4 years old. Like I was little. And I remember just feeling like out of control. Like I didn't know where these big emotions were coming from. I didn't know how to deal with them. And I didn't have anyone around me who had the capability of teaching me how to deal with those emotions because my parents had never had that experience themselves. So how are they supposed to help a little kid if they've never dealt with that situation themselves? And so when I would have these like fits, these tantrums or these crazy emotions, I still like can feel them, would take over me, they would lock me in the bathroom. And if you have ever been overcome with a big emotion that you don't know how to deal with, the worst thing you can do is be locked in a room with it. So now not only was I overcome with this crazy feeling of sadness or anger or whatever it was I was feeling, now I was in a box with it. And I just remember my little body was holding so much of this emotion that I didn't know what to do with it. I would kick the door, I would scream, I would punch until I would wear myself out physically because it's the only thing I could do to release this emotion because I was trapped in a room with it. So I have gotten to a point in my spiritual journey, right? A couple years ago, I had thought about this and I thought I had healed it because mentally, right, it had come back up. I had thought through it. Intellectually, I was like, okay, like I think I've overcome this now. I've thought through it. Emotionally, I thought I had healed it because I had talked to my mom and we discussed it and I had forgiven her for that. She's like, we didn't know what to do with you. Like, that's what the baby book said, like to do when a kid was having a tantrum. And I was like, I understand. Like, you're a human. Like, you're fallible. I get it. You were doing your best. I forgive you. Spiritually, I thought I had healed it because I had done like these discodification exercises when you're kind of like, not really, kind of like a hypnotic state, but like you're basically using your unconscious mind to take you to that place. And then kind of like with inner child work, I would go to that memory, and adult Lolly would come and unlock the door and let little Lolly out. So, right, I had thought I had healed this mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Now I'm doing a Vipassana meditation technique, which is focused on the body. It's focused on subtle sensations in the body. And they say, like, the reason we focus on the body is because every experience we have in the world, every feeling that we feel, translates to a sensation on our physical body. So if you think of sadness, right? We're crying tears. We might feel a heaviness in our shoulders and our neck. When we feel anger, for me personally, I get really hot and I start sweating profusely, right? So the whole point of this technique is to start releasing these patterns that our body have learned that are produced by the reactions to these strong emotions or situations out in the world. And so they say, you might be aware, you might not be aware of the things you're releasing, but you're basically teaching your body to start releasing these things that you've been carrying. And I was like, cool, right? Sounds cool. But I hadn't experienced it myself until day 8, when I realized there had been signs earlier in the week that this is where I was headed, but I didn't put it all together until day 8. So one of the first ideas, okay, let me back up. In doing this style of meditation, since you're using the mind to focus on the body, I found, because I wasn't just trying to quiet the mind, because I was actively using the mind in this meditation technique, it was easier for the mind to wander. So if I'm practicing the meditation I usually practice, where we're bringing the mind to stillness, I'm much more aware of like, no mind, no, don't talk to me right now. We're not thinking about that right now. Come back to stillness, come back to stillness. But with this, because I was actively using the mind to focus on the nose, to focus on the body, it would wander a lot more. And I started finding that it sometimes, of course, it was wandering uselessly just to, distract me and be a little whiny bitch. But other times it was kind of like a useful wandering. It was really interesting. So one thing that came to me, an idea that came to me while I was supposed to be meditating, was mantras for mujeres. And I sing mantras, I practice bhakti yoga. But it was like this clear vision of me in my house with a group of women with an altar to our child selves. Like we create like a little mandala of like flowers and beans and rice and all these beautiful fun things. And then we have pictures of ourselves as children. And we're facing this altar and we're singing to our child selves. This idea came to me. It had to be like day 1 or 2, okay? Seed planted. Didn't realize this was a seed that was being planted, but it was. Later on in the week, I heard someone start singing in the shower. Now, right, we're in a silent meditation retreat, but when you're in the shower, sometimes you lose yourself. And this girl started singing, and then she really quickly, stopped herself. But she was right next to me, so I heard her. And it brought me back to this moment. I used to volunteer for this organization called Royal Family Kids Camp. I started when I was 16 years old, and I did it up through college. My dad is the first one in our family to get involved with this charity. And then I did it, and then my sister joined, and then my mom joined. So it was like a whole family affair. And it's for children in the foster care system. And it's a week-long summer camp for them where they just get to be kids. So a lot of these kids have experienced severe abuse and neglect. And so you go through a very rigorous training before you can even work with these children. And I did that at 15, 16 years old. And when I was in college and I was a counselor, so you're paired with another counselor. So it's you and another counselor, and then you each have 1 or 2 campers. And funnily enough, I got paired with my high school math teacher, Cynthia Hopkins. Shout out to Cynthia. And so our campers were showering and they started singing, and I might start crying. And Cynthia looks at me and she's like, that is the sound of pure joy and safety. And in that moment, hearing this girl start singing in the shower, I was transported back to when she said that, because these kids had suffered so much abuse and neglect and unimaginable horrors. And there they were, just being kids singing in the shower. They felt safe enough and joyful enough to sing in the shower. And it was the simplest thing, but also one of the most beautiful things. And in that moment in Vipassana, I was transported back to that. And I started thinking about all of the little girls who had been my campers, and just thinking, where are they right now? Are they okay? Did they make it? And what a privilege it had been to be of service to them, and to get to play even a small part of joy in their lives. So this was kind of the second seed that had been planted, right? But I didn't know it yet because we still haven't got to the revelation on day 8. So earlier in the week also, I had been really frustrated, right? Day 1 through 4, I was super frustrated with this technique. And I was like, what the fuck is this? This is meditation. And I was sitting there in meditation, super frustrated, and I started cramping up my calves. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't felt this since I was in the bathroom. I used to do this when I was laying on the floor in the bathroom and had so much of that intense emotion, I didn't know what to do with it. I would cramp up my entire little body. Like at the end of some yoga classes, you know, they tell you to like tense up every muscle so that you can release into Shavasana. I would do that as a kid because I had so much of this anger, rage, injustice, sadness, whatever, this cocktail of overwhelming emotion, that I would just tense up my body. And I remember I would tense up my calves. And in that moment, frustrated at Vipassana, I started tensing up my calf, and I was like, holy shit. I knew exactly where that was coming from. But I still hadn't pieced it together because this is only day 1 to 3, right? Like we hadn't even gotten to the Vipassana technique. We were still doing the breath work, the respiration focus. Day 8, right? These little seeds have been planted. I'm sitting there, I'm getting frustrated again, and I do it again. I cramp up my calf. And that's when all of the puzzle pieces come together. I realize that although I had healed that trauma on a mental, emotional, and spiritual level, my body was still carrying it. I don't know if y'all are familiar with the book, The Body Keeps the Score. I haven't read it, but literally I know about it because my friend's a psychiatrist. Shout out to Jordan, and he's talked to me about it. And literally, as I was doing the Vipassana technique, I was like, this is the body keeps the score technique, like of meditation, but it's 2,500 years old, right? Like science is always catching up to the Vedas and ancient forms of meditation thousands of years later. But I realized that my body was still keeping the goddamn score. My body was still holding this pain, this frustration. And in that moment, everything started coming together. The pain in the body was showing me what I needed to heal. What I needed to heal was the whole reason I had been called to do this 10-day retreat in the first place. The reason I had started working with young kids and young girls since the moment I could, like you weren't supposed to be able to volunteer unless you were 18, you're an adult. And they made an exception and let me start at 15, 16 because I was like, I have to do this. The reason I was so adamant about working with kids and why I still work with them today is because there was no adult to hold space and to hold little Lolly. And I wanted to be the adult for those kids. I wanted to be the adult I didn't have. And so that's why I had started working with kids at that age. That's why I still worked with kids to this day. The reason why the idea for mantras for mujeres was one of the first ideas that came into my mind was because the whole reason I was at Vipassana was for little Lolly. I was there to heal some of the shit that she was still carrying in her body. And all of a sudden, all of these little seeds that have been planted throughout the week start coming together. And I'm like, I'm overwhelmed, right? I'm sitting, thankfully, I was in the back of the meditation hall because I had asked to be against a wall. 100 hours of meditation. There's no way. I'm sorry. I had to have some comfort. My comfort was a brick wall. Thankfully, I was in the back of the hall, but I just started crying, like silently as possible. But it just started flowing out of my face. All of these things started coming together. I had this realization. I was like, this is why I'm here. I'm still carrying this. I'm still carrying this in my body. And so I asked my body, show me where this is. And I have had TMJ since I was young. Bruxismo in Espanol. Bruxism. I am a teeth grinder. I literally clench my jaw all the time. It's where I carry all my stress. So I have so many neck issues. And I could feel it. That's where I was holding it. And then it made sense, of course. When you tense up your whole body, what do? You clench your teeth. And I was like, oh my fucking God, right? Realization after realization is coming. And I'm just like, holy shit. And then I say, okay, body, like just let it go. Like liberate me from this. Body, you don't need to hold this anymore. You are safe. You're no longer locked in that bathroom. You can let it go. And I felt this sensation. It was almost like, it wasn't painful, but the image of almost like a scalpel opening my chest from like my collarbone down and just like opening up my chest to like opening up my heart chakra. And it was just, there was space. And it was just this relief. Like I no longer had to hold this tension. I could open up my, right? Like you tense yourself, you go into a ball. It was the opposite. I was opening up my chest and it was opening up and my heart was opening up. And I was like, oh my fucking God. Like this, I'm like liberating this. And when I went back to that memory of me lying on the floor, it no longer had the charge it had before. It no longer held that weight. It was as if little Ollie was just relaxed and resting. And I was like, holy shit, these motherfuckers got me. I was like, this shit works. All right. I'm bought in. I'm sold. This fucking works. And I literally thought, like, if this is the only breakthrough I have for these 10 days, it's worth it. If this is obviously there's so much more shit that I need to heal, right? We all do. But I was like, if this is the one thing that I fucking remember that I heal or that I remember getting from this, I'm happy with that. Because, wow, that was incredibly powerful. So after day 8, I was just like, wow. I was like, all right, I'm going to keep going. Day 9 was the day I was finally able to feel what they call like a free flow state of the subtle sensations throughout the body. And the whole reason they want you to feel this, the whole reason they're having you focus on subtle sensations isn't just to release things from the body, but it's also to become aware of the fact that we are just atoms, that we are just particles. And therefore, us seeing ourselves as something solid isn't real because everything is made up of atoms. There is no difference between me and the air. There is no difference between me and what I'm sitting on, right? We're all made up of the same particles. So the reason they want you to focus on the subtle body and to feel these sensations, it literally feels like a really like pleasurable, like electric current kind of like going down your body, is then you feel like, oh yeah, I'm just particles, I'm just atoms. And then eventually you get to a state, I didn't get there, but eventually you get to a state where you're able to go in and out of the body, like left and right, in and out, not just, like thinking of yourself as a solid whole and going up and down. You're able to traverse the body with these currents. And then you really feel a state of being in union and being in oneness with all things, which is what meditation is all about. Whatever type you practice, it's about union. It's about becoming one with the divine, or, becoming closer at least to source, the divine. So Vipassana is that, but in a very corporal way. And so that's why they are focusing so much on sensations of the body, so that you become aware that you are just atoms and you are one with everything else. Your solidity is an illusion, essentially. So I finally got to feel those little electric currents throughout my body on day 9, the free flow of sensations. And day 9 was also the only day I was able to enter a meditative state that lasted after meditation. So this has happened to me a couple times before. Basically, if you get into a really deep meditative state, you try to maintain it when you come out of the meditation. So, like, if you don't have hours to sit there meditating, like you do at Vipassana, you come out and you try to maintain that stillness of mind as you go about your daily activities. And sometimes it lasts a couple hours, sometimes it can last longer, sometimes it only lasts half an hour after you stop meditating. But that on day 9, I finally got into that state where I came out of meditation and I could like take a walk and I was still actively in that state. So that was also really reaffirming that this method was finally making sense to me, and that my mind and my body was understanding it. It was in communion with it, so to speak. Day 10 is when we broke our silence. So we had the morning that was like basically the same routine. And then after our first group sitting in the morning, we were able to speak again. And so once you speak again, you're kind of like it's not as easy to get back into that meditative state. So I kind of knew like after that was it. But honestly, that was fine. Like we were all so tired and ready and ready for it to be over, to be honest. That we were all just like, la, 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 just like word vomiting everything. It was actually really funny because I was still like coming out of silence and I still needed some time to myself. Actually, right after we broke silence, I was talking a little bit. We went to eat and then I immediately went back to the room, and you're not supposed to have any writing material. I always have a notebook with me. Hello, I'm a writer. But I didn't use it the whole time. So I was like, I'm not going to turn it in because I have will. And I did. I didn't use it until we broke silence. And that's actually the notebook I have in front of me right now to read my notes for this episode. And so the first thing I did was like, the first words I need are for myself. So I sat down and I wrote. And yeah, that was it. Day 10, we still maintained more or less our routine, but we were able to talk in between sessions. And then day 11, we still woke up early, still did our early meditation. But then we packed up our stuff. We cleaned our bunks and for spiritual summer camp. And we went home, and like, oh my God, the way home was like a pilgrimage. Reminded me of the Mahakumbh. I was like, oh my God, it's just like going on another pilgrimage. Get home. But yes, that was my experience with Vipassana. Like I said, one of the hardest things I've ever fucking done. I was and am so fucking proud of myself that I fucking did it, that I stayed and I did it. And I highly recommend it to anyone who wants to understand the nature of their own minds. It is incredibly revelatory. That's the word. If I had to sum up this experience in one word, it's revelatory. So if you do have the means to take, it's more like 12 days of your life, because there's a day for arrival and departure, to go do this crazy fucking thing, I highly recommend it. Now, I don't know if I will I won't use this technique in my everyday practice. I like the meditation technique that I use, but I think of this technique as another tool in my toolbox. And whenever I'm experiencing a very intense emotion or need to transmute energy through the body or just feel something in the body, right now I have a tool. I have a meditation technique to use to process those things. Like little Lolly no longer has to deal with those things just living in her body. Like now she has a tool to get that energy out of her body. So I am so grateful for this experience. Like I said, highly recommend it if you can make it work. And yeah, the last technique we learned was metta, which is when you experience these subtle sensations throughout the body. You think of them as particles of love and goodwill and compassion, and you're basically fostering and creating those sensations throughout your body so that you create like a field of love and compassion and goodwill for others around you. And you just want to spread love and goodwill and compassion with others. So that's what I wish for you, metta. I wish you all love, compassion, and goodwill. And I hope that you get to take something from this, whether it's the technique, whether it's signing up for a course. I hope you're able to find healing in some way. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I would so appreciate it if you would subscribe and share this episode with someone you think would enjoy it and get something out of it. So thank you so much for being here. I'll see you on the next one. Ciao.